Kendra, you've had an amazing career. I mean, the companies you worked for. If I just talked about the last couple of years from partner at Deloitte, managing director at Accenture, and you've stayed for a while in these companies. I mean, Accenture, you stayed for over a decade. Deloitte, almost 5 years. And I talk to a lot of people, they spend a few years in those big companies and then they start their own business. But you stayed and you made it all the way to the top. So I'm curious, why did you decide to leave the corporate world and start your own business?
Oh, that there's so many different layers to the journey. So what I would say to you is my passion has and always has been and always I think will be related to modernizing financial services. And I started my career working in financial services organizations, and then I moved into consulting when I started to notice that I always wanted to be part of the coolest project that was going on, but that wasn't something that happened in everyone's day-to-day jobs. Those were like special events. And if you work in a large wealth management firm, you may get to do that once in a while, but it's not the core. So I moved to consulting in 2007 because I thought I want that to be the core of what I do, really cool projects that change the course of the business. And consulting is an unbelievable learning ground. It's an unbelievable crash course in where change comes from, how change works, what you can do to affect change. I learned so much. And I had the benefit and timing of being on the front lines of some of the coolest things were going on in the wealth management industry. I joined Accenture, spent the bulk of my first 4 years there in the US helping with the major broker integrations on the back of the crash in 2008. I climbed the ranks there and was given a lot of early leadership opportunity there, which is why I stayed. I mean, such a great organization, so many unbelievable innovators. And ultimately, my decision to leave Accenture and move to Deloitte was really about wanting to be more present in Canada. I had a North American role at Accenture, and as a result, I was on an airplane basically every single week. Deloitte was an amazing organization as well. It's very hard to join big consulting firms as an outsider, and I certainly felt that sort of culture clash or that integration stress. It's a wonderful group of people building, really meaningful offerings. But I missed the US when I was there. I was only really able to practice in Canada, and I missed being closer to the work. One of the things that happens in professional services is as you climb the ranks, you're increasingly asked to run the firm more than you're asked to spend time with clients. And ultimately, one of the biggest motivators for me creating Epoch was a desire to be with my clients at the table as they modernized. I wanted to be an insider. I wanted to be an accelerator, a thought partner, a strategy stress tester. I didn't want to be spending my time on meeting after meeting about the consulting pyramid within the firm, or dealing with the running of the firm. So this um, business and launching Epoch Advice has been one of the most amazing culminations of all the effort and all the learning and all the karma that I've built through all those years in big firm consulting. I soft launched in August last year while I was still under non-compete, and I hard launched shortly after in the fall. The response has been exceptional. Many of my clients over the years had said, you should do your own thing. You should do your own thing. And so it was nice to hear and see their support when I finally got the guts to do it. It's been really about going back to what gives me energy and plays to my strengths. I think all of us have strengths, and my strength is on understanding where the future of advice is going and how the industry needs to change in order to get there. And now I spend all my time on those types of problems versus all the other things that come from running a big firm.
And do you feel like the wealth management business has changed a lot? over the last decade or two? Because usually we look at the financial industry as a slow mover in terms of technology and innovation because of the risks that are involved. So do you feel like this is the case for wealth management?
Yeah, I mean, wealth management has been changing nonstop since I started my career in wealth management in 2000. When I started, it was all about .com and then the .com burst, and then it was about um, the integration, and then it was about digital, and now um, it's been about AI. So there's been no shortage of change. The change has changed. The way in which the firms are changing and the degree to which that change is voluntary or forced upon them has varied over my career. But the industry itself is really awesome and really going through a ton. I hate to use the word unprecedented because we use that all through COVID, and to be honest, it is precedented. It's been changing nonstop since I joined the industry, but it's really important to understand the core of the business is not changing. So, at the core of wealth management, you have a family who is looking for advice around their money and their future and their legacy. That has never changed. The way in which it's developed, the way in which it's differentiated, the way in which it's made more profitable, the way in which it's made more personal, that's all changed. And the structures and the frameworks of the industry, the way it's regulated, those things have evolved. But the actual human part hasn't changed, and nor do I think it really will. Like even with all of the innovation around AI, I still really see value in human advice, and that's, ultimately where I spend most of my time is how to modernize human advice.
Kendra, so much to unpack here, but maybe I'll start with the transition from where you were to starting your own business. It's been a year now, and yeah, it's well known that people that work in the Big Four usually they have a lot going on, so they're always super busy. But we also know that founders also don't have the simplest life. So I guess my question to you is, was it a smooth transition? Do you feel like you had to learn a lot along the way in the first couple of months? Because you do have the experience, but having your own business is very different than being surrounded by a team and a gigantic corporation that has your back.
Yeah. Oh, I wouldn't use the word smooth. I would use the word
Mhm.
exciting. I would use the word intense. I would use the word hustle. I miss my team that I built at Deloitte. They were exceptional. They continue to be exceptional. I miss the collegiality I had with certain partners in both firms, and I miss the existing MSAs at big clients where you could just sell right in. Like the contracting part has been difficult, invoicing and getting pricing right. Like there's been a lot of nuts to crack as I've started the business, but I've loved the learning process, and I feel so grateful to be in the position to give it a go. I have a lot to learn still, and other founders and colleagues have sort of encircled me with their experience and their support. I mean, the reciprocity that I have found from other sort of industry nerds or people who care has been amazing. And the work has been so fulfilling. Like I'm much more motivated by the work. And yeah, there is definitely probably a 4-year learning curve, and I'm only through the first year, figuring out, like I said, those cycles, figuring out the operational side of the business, getting the right partners in place, exploring whether to add partners or not. Like that's been a really hard and still not resolved question. Do I want to build a big team? Like, do I want to build a bigger boutique, or do I want to create a model that is more in my image? I still have not landed on the final answer for that. So yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say smooth, but I would say fulfilling. I would say empowering. I would say exhausting. Like it's been an amazing year. Some of the things that I didn't expect how much AI and technology would be able to create leverage and support me. I've I've learned so much about how to use tools to work smarter. I didn't expect how much of my energy would go to the administration. When you're in a big firm, there's someone who chases the SOW signatures and makes sure things end up in the right folders and the invoices go out and get, the invoicing stuff is definitely a hard part of the founder story. And then yeah, like you never know where the next windfalls will come from. Like some of the things that I thought would be huge sources of revenue for me turned out to be less so, and some of the things that I underestimated turned out to be great. Same with events. Like you don't always know, should I take the time to go to that event or speak at that event? I'm doing some trial and error. Obviously, when I was in a bigger firm, I had a marketing department and people on my team supporting all those things. So it's been a learning curve on those elements. And I would say I wouldn't use the word transition. Like I'm not thinking of it as transition. I haven't looked back once. I'm really looking at it as building. And the second I knew that I didn't see myself or have a future at Deloitte, I was like, I'm going to build what I've always wanted to build. Because at the end of the day, um, I think when you've worked at two very different and exceptional in their own way firms, and you see that getting, you're not fitting in or you're not part of whatever the profile is that seems to love those environments. Like for me, it was like square peg, round hole in two very different cultures. I'm like, okay, I've learned what I can, and I need to now go and create the culture that's the right fit for me. And I think that learning curve uh, is so natural, right? Like I already know how I want to work and who I want to work with and what I love about my work. So it's been so liberating not to have to spend my time explaining that to someone or compelling others to agree, and instead just to go out and work with the clients on their problems.
Kendra, I'm going to end with this. You're obviously very excited about this new venture, about the new learnings, and you have a great mindset. You're always looking at this in a positive way. So I guess my last question to you is, what's the next big milestone for Epoch? When's the moment you will say that, you know what, that was the right decision, I made it, and it's all good?
Oh, I feel like I've made the right decision. So I don't have a moment in the future where I'm like questioning the decision. It's felt right since probably 3 months in. But the milestone is a really great question. I have a milestone up ahead where I have to decide whether or not to take on a partner or partners and expand, and the degree to which I want to build a boutique firm so that I can scale it and sell it versus the degree towards something that's more sustainable for me and a small team. Um, and I think a milestone would be to have the right person in front of me that I could have that conversation with and know that there was a true potential partner. Um, and then I think another milestone is, solid, fully mature pipeline, having our research agenda. Like, I've been working very hard to build out the thought leadership, our strategic partners with some of academia, some of our more established partnerships with others in the industry. I think, those things all take time. So I would say milestones around pipeline, milestones around profitability, obviously, milestones around team, milestones around gravitas in the market are all in front of me. And then I think the biggest measure of success is recurring business. So I typically like to think that I have clients for life, and many of my clients have been clients of mine on this entire journey and have like a deep shared loyalty to each other, a trust where they know that they can count on me. I'll jump into the trench with them on their worst day, and I'll be there at the cocktail party when they're celebrating the best. And continuing to build relationships like that is to me the biggest sign of success. So, I don't I don't know yet which of the new relationships I've formed this year are going to feel like that, but that's always my gold standard. And then obviously attracting strong talent. I have a team right now that is really impressive. Many of them are contracting, so they're doing other things in their life as well as working for Epoch, which is amazing. The caliber of the talent that I draw towards the business would be another way that I judge success. And obviously, the bigger the business gets, the more talent I can attract. So all those milestones are really about growth and just continuing to stay focused on the heart of why I started the business in the first place, which is, to really understand the needs of investors, to understand what the industry needs to deliver on those needs, and then to help the industry transform to deliver on those needs at scale for a profit. That is what I am trying to do. I'm trying to do that on behalf of all investors in North America. And to me, the more challenges we help solve, the more conversations we're in, and the more people we draw towards Epoch advice, the more likelihood we have on meaningfully affecting change.
Kendra, it was fascinating talking to you. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Yeah, thanks for having me and good luck with this series. It's such a nice thing to be noticed and to see that you're noticing other founders. So much of what we're all trying to do requires community. So thanks for enjoying and including me in yours.
Thank you.